For filmmakers, do we really need two A cams? We're going to get into it. If you look across the filmmaking space, especially when you move to the more higher level productions, what you'll typically see on a set is not just one camera that is the predominant camera, but a Hollywood movie or a very high-end commercial often will use multiple A cams. However, for the indie filmmakers, the run and gun filmmakers, the small crews, those that are a bit more scrappy and in this space of growing agencies or working freelance, you often find that they'll only typically have one really solid camera. And there's some pros and there's some cons to that. So the reason why these large scale productions, e.g. films and top end commercials, will use multiple A cams really comes down to cost and weighing up that cost benefit analysis. So ultimately, if you are to hire out a extra A cam or you were to buy an extra A cam, what that does, it enables you to move more quickly. Now, what do I mean by this? If you've got one camera on set and that is your only camera, say you're rocking an FX6 or a Sony Venice or a Red Raptor, and that's your main camera, that's the only camera that you've got, when you need to change what kind of shot type you want to get, e.g. you want to go from being static, so on a tripod, to being on a easy rig, or you might want to put it on some sort of stabilization like a gimbal or a Steadicam, then every single time that you're going to have to shift the camera from one set of rigging to another, it's going to take time. And on set, time is money. If you look at a high-end production, a film for example, they've got numerous things in place that are costing them every single minute that passes by, be that the location, be that the crew that's on set, be that all the gear that they're hiring out, be that specifically the talent, which is going to take a massive amount of budget. So from a crew perspective and from a gear perspective, if you're trying to capture multiple different varieties of shots in a more condensed time frame, actually having an extra A cam on set, so having multiple of your high tiered camera, can help you move through those shots more quickly. And then ultimately that will give you a cost saving because you don't have to have as many days on set, as many days paying for the talent, and as many days paying for crew and food and all that sort of stuff as well. I started off as a solo filmmaker. I got myself a Canon C300, and then I progressively went on the journey that I think a lot of solo filmmakers do, where you build up your gear set and you are trading in your last camera to buy a new camera, and that one camera is your main camera. And then what you end up having there is a requirement whenever you shoot a sequence or a scene, you're having to move the camera to capture the coverage in all these different ways, and then you're going to have to get the talent to redo the action over and over again to get the coverage that you need for it to cut together. Now, this is a great way to get started, this is a great way to learn, but as you continue progressing through your filmmaking career and you have a few more projects, you earn a bit more money, and then you start working on projects that have slightly higher budgets and a bit more at stake and more to get done in the time frame, you start to ask yourself the question, is it more beneficial for me to have multiple A cams than just one single one? So as I continue to develop my filmmaking business, a natural move for me was to get another A cam. And I now have two of the Sony FX6s, and there's some things that come into play when I'm on set that have absolutely saved me a bunch when I've been out there filming. Just a quick pause in the video here. Just want to say a big thank you to everybody that's come down and hung out. And if you are enjoying the video, I've got one simple ask for you. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it really makes a massive difference to helping this channel grow. And it means a lot to me. It does, from the bottom of my heart. And that one ask is take that head, whoosh, drop a headbutt on the subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to me. And without further ado, we'll get back into the video. Now, for me, I shoot a lot of sport, so I'm dealing with athletes. And often when you are on set with an athlete, whether that's at a football club or you're working with a boxer or you're working with an MMA athlete, whatever it may be, I've worked with a number of them, but the common thread is that you don't always have a bunch of time to film with them. For athletes, their primary objective is to become the best athlete that they can be. And that means that their focus very much often often is around training, routine, nutrition, and introducing something like a production, something that needs to be filmed, is taking physical and mental energy away from that athlete and their headspace. And sometimes these athletes can be worth millions of pounds to their respective promoters or clubs or whatever it may be. And they're really, really guarded. So when you're working with these athletes, the amount of time that you get to actually film with them is very, very limited. And also the rate that you need to film with them is also much more quick. And the reason why you get less time with them is because they have priorities elsewhere. And the reason why you have to move quickly through shots is because often if you're doing something that's dynamic and they're moving around a lot, you can't have a big layover time in between changing from one shot to a different shot. Say for example, you've got your camera, you've put it on an easy rig and you're getting some nice kind of smooth handheld footage around the athlete. But after that, you want to get something which is a little bit more powerful with some bigger sweeping movements and some longer, stabler shots. And you might want to move on to a gimbal for that. Now, if you were to take the camera off the easy rig, dismount the easy rig, put it onto a gimbal, balance the gimbal, get it all set, then go and shoot it, you might take, even if it's 5 minutes, which doesn't feel like a long time, in the context of working in sport, that can feel like a long time for an athlete. And especially the physical teams that work around the athletes, they don't want them standing around getting cold for 5 minutes, because if you then get them doing dynamic movements and they've been getting cold, then the chance of them getting an injury is much higher. So for my particular line of work with sports athletes, I like to often have 1, 2, sometimes even 3 cameras set up and rigged in different ways, whether that's handheld one, and then that can easily quickly get switched onto an easy rig, and then I'll have another camera on a gimbal. And it just means instead of there being that delay time in between shots, you can switch from one to another really quickly, get loads of coverage. Then the person that you're working with isn't standing around, they're not getting bored, they're not getting agitated, and you can just keep the energy high and move through things and get more coverage. If you're shooting short films or you're shooting narrative work, having multiple cameras is also really helpful for that. If you're shooting dialogue and you're trying to get that 2 shot of people speaking, or you've got some nice blocking going on and you need to switch to a different camera, having multiple A cams is pretty essential, because when you're working with talent on a set where you are doing something more narrative driven, you might get an amazing take between actors on set. And if you've only got one camera recording that's capturing, I don't know, the reaction to that incredible performance, then you've missed the incredible performance of the person that's delivering it. So if you have multiple cameras on set, you can get that wider level of coverage and make sure that you can shoot things once, maybe twice, get a really good take while the actors are fresh and they're going to give their best lines. And then you can wrap sooner, move on to the next thing and get more scenes done within a day. So look, I get it as well. I just want to caveat this here because I know that cameras aren't an inexpensive thing. They are an asset that can cost a lot of money. But what I would say is if you're going on your filmmaking journey and you come across projects which are going to be more narrative driven, or you're going to be working in an environment where you need to get a lot of coverage in a very short space of time, e.g. sports, then I would consider investing in a second A cam so you can get that higher level of coverage faster, or you can get that higher level of coverage on a scene and make sure you don't miss those moments. For me, I think filmmakers actually fall into the trap sometimes of wanting to get the most flashy, newest, highest spec camera because it has all of the bells and whistles of features, when actually cameras that are, 4, 5, 6, some even 10 years old are actually really capable cameras. And if you had multiple cameras capturing multiple things, you could capture more footage and end up with a better edit. Seriously, I would ask yourself the question, what is going to benefit the piece of video work that you're creating? Is it going to be more shots, or is it going to be having one camera that can shoot 120 frames in 6K? Like, how often do you really use that? And I've been there and I've had what they call in the industry GAS, gear acquisition syndrome. But as I've gone through and matured a bit more as a filmmaker, I've realised that actually a lot of the features that they put into new cameras aren't actually helping you tell a better story. They're great for very particular niche shots, and often the vast majority of filmmakers don't need that feature. It's just a nice gimmick that you might use once, throw it into an edit, but if it comes down to actually creating the best pieces of work possible, often coverage is much more valuable than having a camera that can do something in a high resolution at a high frame rate. This isn't me hating on new camera technology. I absolutely love new camera technology, but I'd just say, look, is it better for you to have multiple strong cameras than it is to have one camera that's got all the bells and whistles and gimmicks that you might not actually often use? Now, this is your own prerogative as a filmmaker. You'll be able to make that decision yourself, but I hope this shared a little bit of insight into some use cases as to why people have multiple A cams opposed to just having the one A cam, and makes you think a little bit about, in my filmmaking journey that I'm going on, is it right for me to get another A cam at this stage? And, you know, fundamentally, don't forget that you don't always have to buy them outright. You can also hire an A cam for a particular shoot that you need if the kind of shoot requires you to get that higher level of coverage. For me, my philosophy is getting the right gear that is right for the job, and also the correct volume of gear that's going to help make that job smooth and efficient and run correctly, but also within budget as well. And sometimes when you're talking about budget, it's worth thinking, is it going to cost me more to hire an extra A cam for the day, or is it actually going to cost me more to hire a location for 2 days and talent for 2 days? That wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed the video, do us a favor, take that head, whoosh, drop the head button on the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.